Welcome to the Overcoming PTSD podcast. My name is Brad Shipke, and today I have a very special interview for you with Dana Plumley. Dana is somebody very special who was able to fully recover from her childhood trauma, multiple rapes, and drug and alcohol addiction. She's now going out there and inspiring other people to heal and fully recover. And I really dug into her story to identify what are the things that allowed her to heal from decades and decades of PTSD. She literally suffered for most of her life with PTSD and has been able to fully recover in her 50s, proving that it doesn't matter how long you've had PTSD or how old you are, you can fully heal. So sit back and enjoy, because this will really motivate you and inspire you. Well, welcome, Dana. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
First, tell us a little bit about your story. So how did you initially, I know you went through a lot of childhood trauma that eventually led into some drug and alcohol addiction, and where you are right now is where you're fully recovered, you're chasing after your dream job and helping and inspiring more people. So where did your journey start out? Like how did that all happen?
Oh my goodness. I had some things happen to me when I was young that set the table for early drug and alcohol addiction. Like I started using when I was 15, and at that point, things just went sideways. I was raped several times. I was raped. It was a date rape when I was 17, or when I was 15 rather, when I was going to fraternity parties underage. And then, and that causes trauma. And then you want to numb the feelings with more alcohol in my case, and partying more, getting with more and more violent people. So there was a gang rape. There was an incident where I had a gun held to my head and raped, these kinds of things. And then the biggest trauma of all, though, Brad, I have to say, was the trauma of the mental health system.
Really?
What being a person who participated in the mental health system did. I'm 59 years old now. I've been in treatment since I was 19 years old. My first psychiatric hospitalization was when I was 19, and I have, like, we'll get into it more, but I still use this fantastic psychologist. He's more of a coach than anything else right now. But he helped me piece together some things along with overcoming PTSD, the program. But he explained to me that when I was in treatment back in the day, the people who were working at hospitals in treatment capacities had come out of state hospitals. There was this whole move historically to get patients out of state hospitals into the community, but there was still a lot of resistance among the community, believing, like, I was told that I would never get better, that I was always going to get worse. I was actually told that. And along the line, in all the treatment I had with various therapists and psychiatrists, I had two providers tell me that my problems were too complicated for them and that they couldn't help me. And so, it was just a lot of messages about that kind of thing. I had it really driven into my head by them and by other people that I'd never be able to take care of myself. And so the biggest part of my journey has been learning that Dana has agency and Dana can take care of herself. And it's been really exciting to get to the point where I'm at now.
That's amazing. So you'd gone through all that trauma, from your childhood, all that addiction. And out of that, you still say that the biggest trauma was from the mental health system itself, which is fascinating. Fascinating. Definitely.
I went through this whole thing. Like, I was looking at, I went back, I know we use terminology and stuff on the platform for overcoming PTSD, but I went back and I looked at an interview I did. I was 3 months in, and I was reminded of it. How old would I have been? Probably in my 20s or 30s, something like that. Was about the time it was popular. This whole wave came on the industry. I call it the industry for a reason. The whole thing came on the industry, called false memory syndrome. Devastating. This whole thing that the victims were making up the stories, that we couldn't be believed. We were manufacturing these tales in our heads. And for a person who's experienced some pretty significant trauma from a young age, Then it's this massive gaslighting thing that went on. So I'm like, okay, I'm a horrible person. Okay. And then having to come out of that again, it's like you think, like, I haven't calculated the amount of money that was spent on treatment and medication and all that to get gaslit, to get my health back again, to be a whole person. And so now, like, in my capacity, I work for Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center with adult men, and I work with them as a counselor. So I try to speak hope and love into their lives.
That's awesome, and I definitely want to get into that now, like, or later, like what you're doing now with the Salvation Army. I think that's really cool. I'm really intrigued though about your experience, like with the industry itself and the false memory syndrome thing. That's wild. So you were told, like, I mean, the craziest thing too is, like, you pay these people money with the expectation that you're going to help me, and then you end up being told it's too complicated. You're going to be like this forever. You can't manage yourself. You'll never manage yourself. Right. And that the things that you actually went through didn't happen. Right?
Yeah.
And you paid money for that. It's crazy. It's wild.
It really is insane.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, I've had good providers along the way, but I've had some, like, that just totally disastrous experiences, and left me really suspicious of providers. So, like, when I found the platform, for me, it was an answer. It was a literal answer to a prayer. I've had suicide attempts in the past. I was suicidal. This would have been back in 2020 rather. I'm so sorry. 2020. It was when Broken to Unbreakable, when the first rollout came out with the program, and I was scrolling through Facebook in the morning. I had prayed the night before for God to give me an answer, to give me some relief from this. And Broken to Unbreakable popped up in the newsfeed, and I was really intrigued by it, because I had like a lot of people who are broken wind up getting into mental health. And I had worked as a certified peer specialist, and then I worked as a bachelor's level therapist. And then when I started getting massive breakthrough memories, that was when I was like, yeah, this false memory syndrome, this is like bogus. This stuff happened, and getting confirmation from third parties and stuff like that, So anyway, so I was really going through it, and I was suicidal, scrolling, there's Broken Unbreakable, and I recognized all these things that you do in the program. What I love so much about the program is that it puts all the control in my hands. That I'm the one who does the healing, and there were things in there that the internal family systems, cognitive behavioral therapy, all the stuff is that really works. EMDR, is all in there, but it's done in a way that isn't like you dumb it down. It's like you just get to the essence of it, and cut to the chase, that you don't need an expert or somebody who has multiple degrees to sit with you once a week and tell you in 45 minutes you get to process this, and then you get to go home and be in misery until you come in next week, but I cancel because something came up at home, so you're going to have to wait another week.
Right. Exactly. And you're right too. And the reason why the program even came out that way is because it's experience based, because we went through it. It's like the reason why we have the essence of it is because, like, that's the stuff that actually works.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And a lot of it, like, so it's really cool. And I think that's a big beneficial part of it too. You're not dependent on somebody else. You're not going to somebody else to save you or expect somebody else to save you. It's like you get all that power in your hands. Yeah. Because
that was the other thing. Like, I was going over my notes before we came on, and looking over my notebook that I kept from all the processing and stuff like that. And I was really susceptible because of the amount of time I spent in treatment in mental health as a patient, to believing that I wasn't the expert on myself.
Yeah.
That these other people were, and somehow they had
couldn't be.
Yeah. Or that they had some kind of unique vision into Dana's life, that they understood what was going on, and I didn't. And so it was just like amazing to get to the point where I'm working full time now, and I'm helping other people, and I'm healthy. And it's just been through the grace of God and doing the program, definitely.
Yeah. And putting in the work, because there's a lot of hard work on your end, right?
It's a lot of hard work, but then there's also been a lot of prayer in my church, and my belief in Christ, and my practices as a Christian. It all comes into play. And like, what I love so much about the work I'm doing now as a counselor at the Salvation Army is that I'm open about my faith. And like, the beautiful thing about biblical counseling is that we know that people get better. We know that people are inherently healthy. And that's contradictory to a lot of this stuff. It's funny because like I go online just so I stay up on like the trends and stuff like that, and I'll participate in some of these webinars. And I was at one, I can't remember what it was on. It was on narcissism or something like that I was attending. And the facilitator acknowledged that some people attending the webinar may be people who were in treatment, were clients or patients, and just so patronizing, just like immediately started talking down to people like me that might not understand all the terminology and this and it.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Because it is kept at such a high level, like for what purpose? There's no purpose. It's not that complicated. Like it really isn't. And then it's like you take this very simple concept that's very effective, right? Like, and that's the thing too. It's like there's no new fundamentals, or the fundamentals are the fundamentals. It's like same thing with. And it took me a while to kind of distill things down to the fundamentals. But why do you think the industry is so complicated? Do you think there's any kind of like ulterior motives, or do you think like it's just, or what?
I could go down the rabbit hole.
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
Go down the rabbit hole. Like you can talk about it being a moneymaker. You can talk about pathologizing people. You can talk about over medicating people. You can talk about some really sinister stuff. And then you can just talk about simply not understanding and not having enough exposure to people like me and other people you've interviewed on the podcast to know that people do recover from PTSD. Just like historically, another thing, I think it's been within 10 to 12 years maybe that it's become common for women to be diagnosed with PTSD. I've had it for like 40 years. But I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, dissociative identity disorder, all kinds of crazy nonsense. And like when I got into the program, I have a great psychiatric provider now, because I still take meds. I'm getting off of my meds. I still take meds, and she's like, Dana, most of your problems are going to be solved in therapy. They're going to be solved by you working through them. And she's on board with the program that I've done with Overcoming PTSD, as is my psychologist. They believe that it's in my hands and that I can heal. And it is not in the pills, but that's unusual. People think that you're broken for life. I hate seeing some of the press that gets out on PTSD, that you're always going to be living with this, that you're always going to be suffering, you're always going to be. It's not true.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So you, we could go down the rabbit hole deeper, and I think like it's really you have a very unique experience, because you dealt with this for so long, and you went right into the belly of the beast from a very young age, right? Like you said, in your teens, you went to a psychiatric hospital, and the ways that affected you were severe. It seems like the things that, and this is just my analysis of the situation, but it seems like the thing that probably affected you the most were the beliefs that were instilled in you during your stays there,
Yes.
I don't like, we can get into more about like the actual trauma that you said, like what was more, you said that was more traumatic than the actual traumas that you went through.
Well, here, I'll give you one. Okay, because like I was gang raped. But when I was at a hospital stay one time, I ran away from the hospital, and they sent security after me. They tracked me down. I was running down a highway, and it took 5 of them to pull me into the van. And when I was doing my bilateral processing, like how we do it, where you start out with a dysfunctional belief and the belief that you want the healthy belief, and then you do the bilateral processing in segments,
Right.
and then do the installation of the new belief, and I was jumping around in that. Like initially I thought, wow, gang rape, but what was coming out was how these people who were supposed to be helping me, what that was like, and how I was treated, and just what a betrayal that was. So it really just dovetailed with the trauma. It just made it worse. Like, I think for people with PTSD who go inpatient, a lot of us have bad experiences because for security reasons, they take away everything. You're locked in. You can't go anywhere. It's all the stuff that when you're really in the grips of PTSD is just like super triggering. So then you get
Absolutely.
all kinds of bad behavior when you're in the hospital, and then they react to that, and then you get more trauma on top of it.
Yeah. Especially for you, what you went through, I'm sure a lot of the effects of the traumas that you went through was like lack of control. And then you go into this place where you have even less control and less freedom, right? So I imagine it just compounded everything else that you went through.
You can't handle freedom. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't handle it. You're too complicated. You're going to be like this forever. So yeah. So you experienced more acute trauma while in there. And on top of that, they added on some very unhealthy, destructive beliefs as well, which is wild. So, because I think your experience, I think a lot of people can resonate to maybe not specifically what you went through. Like, obviously some people will, but those beliefs that were built, what you went through is too complicated. You're always going to be like this. You can't take care of yourself. You're never going to be the same. Right.
I'm a horrible person. Can't take care of myself.
And these were told to you, right?
It's always going to be this way.
They said that to you probably multiple times.
Or just horrible things, look at what you've done, this kind of stuff. And you have to take what I loved about it, when I got into the program, Broken Unbreakable and Overcoming PTSD, is like what I loved so much was that all of the stuff, like all the nightmares, the rage outbursts, all the triggering, all that stuff, I was told in the program that it was a normal response to an abnormal event. And that was such a load off, that those were just symptoms. But then with that, you were very clear in the program that once I had that knowledge, then I had responsibility to heal myself. And that's the challenge to all of us, and I think, what was I going to say? I had, the psychologist that I'm working with now, he's been great at explaining some things to me when I've run up against complicated situations in my own healing. And he explained to me that I had I wasn't well equipped to begin with, and I made poor choices, but they were the best choices I could make at the time, if that makes sense. So I take full responsibility for the choices I've made in my life and the destruction I caused in my own life. And I acknowledge at the same time that I was doing the best I could.
Yeah.
I was doing the best I could. And now I'm doing better.
And that's the balance between the two, which a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people. Yeah. It's like whenever I post about like that idea, the concept of responsibility, or like I post about it or I talk about it online or something, a lot of people get it, but a lot of people still don't. They have a hard time holding those two seemingly conflicting ideas in their mind at the same time, which is like, I'm responsible for my actions and, my emotions and my problems.
Well, that's because,
and also it's not like I can't blame myself for it and I can't beat myself up for it.
Well,
I
that's like
did
all
the
the
best I
nonsense
could.
that's getting churned out is the victim mentality. Victim
Exactly.
mentality. That you're a victim, that you're always going to be suffering with this,
Hmm.
that these things, and that's what's being fed to people. It's
Hmm.
keeping people in a state of helplessness, and like I feel really blessed because I spent a lot of time around 12-step programs, and key to that is full responsibility for your behavior. You an arbitrary line and asked me when I started making adult decisions. And at that point, oh, it looks like my connection's a little bit unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you cut out when you said feeding the victim mentality. You have to take full responsibility for your behavior, like all of your behavior.
Yeah. And I had a sponsor who said that I as an adult are starting to make adult decisions that I take responsibility for that. And people can understand that when you step up to the plate and you take responsibility, that you have freedom. That's freedom.
Yeah.
When you agents can affect your world, that's freedom. Being told that you're a victim all the time and blaming other people and pointing the finger, you're always a slave to something.
Exactly.
And
That's the exact word that came to my mind. You're a slave. You're a slave to somebody else, some other thing. You blame them. You give them all of your power. And that's like it's a powerful word, because it really is. Because then your whole life is dictated by somebody else or somebody else's behavior, what they did to you. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. When you say it's on me, then you have the power. That's you taking your power back, and that can be painful too, because you'd be like, oh my God, it was me. It's like I made these decisions, and that can to come to terms with that sometimes is painful in the short term, but it's also like you said, freeing.
It's very freeing, and I think you have to be clear. Like some of the things that I experienced were criminal. There's no doubt about it. Nobody deserves to be raped. Nobody deserves that. I'll add that I was the one who picked up the drink. I was the one who made those decisions. And the consequences, like other people have free will, God's gifted us with free will. I happen to get sandbagged by some people, but I have my part to play in the whole thing. And the other piece that's been keeping Brad, and I think has really taken me over the line, has been my faith and the call to forgiveness, and what that means. I had the blessing when I worked in a state hospital for a while as a sort of peer specialist, and I saw individuals, and the light went off at one point for me where I realized what someone had been through as children was just horrific, and it would have been a miracle for them not to commit the crimes that they did. And for me, like once that piece clicked, then all that rage, all that blame, all that finger pointing just went away, and I forgave that, and and I don't harbor any resentment or anything like that towards those people.
So you were able to see them, what they went through, and then seeing that as a direct cause to, it's like no wonder they ended up the way
their behavior. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're just on a collision course. I think you mix alcohol and in with it, and it just bad things happen. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
And then you just accept that and move on.
Yeah. What was the process of accepting that? Because what you said about your responsibility and just to be clear, like you're saying that you had some responsibility, in the events and the traumas that happened to you, the rapes that happened, right? It's like you took the drink, you put yourself into that situation. It's like that is like for anybody who hasn't experienced,
I know, I can imagine rape, people turning this thing off right now.
That's a very hard thing for anybody else to say, but you actually went through it and you're saying it, right? And this is what I was saying before too. Being able to hold two ideas in your mind at the same time, saying that I'm responsible for this part of it, they're responsible for this part, but I still am responsible for this. And this is the part that I have power over. If you put all of the responsibility on the other party, then you can't protect yourself from that happening again in the future because you had no part in it. It's just like, oh, this just happened to me and there's nothing I can do about it. But when you look for that, no matter how small of like responsibility is attributed to you, when you look for that, you have something that you can now control because you're no longer putting yourself into situations like that. You're no longer going out there because like I'm sure we could all think of like a very dangerous part of town or a very dangerous city. It's like, now imagine going there at midnight to a really, broken down or like a bar in the middle of the night, and you get really drunk all by yourself. It's like, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's like, there's certain things, like if you put yourself in such certain environments, like certain things are going to happen. I believe it's Charlie Munger said something like, if I wish I could know something like this. If I knew where I was going to die, I just wouldn't go there. Right. So like so much of success is just avoiding where bad things are going to happen. So if you just don't put yourself in situations where bad things will happen or will very likely happen, those bad things won't happen. So but I think you being able to take responsibility for that is incredible. And that's a hard thing for people to accept. Right. And that's what you said. It's like, that's something that I had to accept. So what was that process like of you accepting that? And were you stuck in the kind of victim mentality for a long time? Like blaming
for real.
So like, what did that look like?
Yeah, that was just horrible.
Because I think your story, like I used to be like this is how I broke out of that. These are the realizations and the beliefs that, had to shift, could really help people who have experienced something similar or the same thing.
Yeah. For certain. Victim. It was so funny. I was at work yesterday and I was talking with one of the other staff members, and I'm up to my chin in paperwork right now. And that's where I'm like, I want to get through this. And so he said, oh, do you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders? And I said, oh yes. And he said, and we're joking around. And I'm like, no, I don't feel that way. But I can pull out my drama log is what I told him. Yeah. Because I used to definitely do that. I'm trying to think what changed it. I think it was the blessing of 12-step programs back in the 90s and the early 2000s, with people who were really influenced by the origins of the program and taking responsibility for your own behavior. That you needed to cop to that, and working through the steps just changed my life dramatically. When I got to, there's a process, and I won't turn this into a 12-step program.
That's cool.
There's just a process.
Yeah, for just knowing what you went through, regardless of where it came from, is okay. Yeah,
because there's a process when you turn your life over, when you admit how powerless you are over the substance. And I'm very clear, I can't drink. That's just out. And then you turn your life over to God out of desperation, in my case, and you keep moving forward to a point where you inventory your resentments is where you start out, and you do your fears in a sex inventory, but your resentments. And for alcoholics, and we're just so consumed by blame, and I've been harmed, and look what they did to me, and everything. And so when you're teasing it out, you can just like let it rip with what the other person did, but then you have to take your part in it, and it's a lot of self-introspection, on what did I do, and there are things that happened when I was younger, that and I'll be clear for people here: when you're a child, you have no part in what's going on. That's like absolutely. The child, definitely not. It's what happens with the material as you move forward and start making adult decisions. But I had to start looking at choices I was making. Just the simple fact, just as an alcoholic, picking up a drink is the ultimate act of responsibility, because once I do that, then all bets are off. Yeah. So I have a choice to do that. So that's like when I look, like I explain to people today, when you're having a conversation, like right now, we're having a conversation. So there are two parts, Brad and Dana. And I'm talking more now and you're listening more. But you have to look at a situation and the number of people that are there and the parts. And sometimes the part is like slim to none, and sometimes it's like 99%. But it's always, there's always a part there. Always a part there.
Very cool. So your desperation led you to seeking out help and really questioning things. So you got to this point, whether you want to call it a rock bottom moment or whatever, where you're like, I need to do something about this blame and this resentment and all these things from my past that are affecting me in such a severe way, that's where a lot of people's transformations begin, because it just gets to a point where it becomes unmanageable in your life. Unfortunately, us humans, we need to get to that point where it's like unmanageable. And sometimes that victim mentality, I know for me and in cases, is so strong and so powerful because you go through something horrible, right? Like you go through something genuinely horrible and evil. And it's very easy to put all the blame on them. And then you follow that strategy of putting the blame on somebody else, and your life gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse to a point where you get to that point of desperation, like you said, and you start to question it. You start to question the strategy of it's all their fault because it's led you to where you are right now. So that was your transformation. That point of desperation led you to the 12-step program, which then led you to, it sounded like I think what you say is like, you could let it rip on other people. So like you could express how you truly felt about what these people did to you. Right.
Yeah.
But
how it affected my life. But here's the funny part. Right. The first time I did one of those inventories, I had this sponsor and I had to drive 45 minutes to see. She was very strict, and I was very excited. I got my inventory done, and I drove out to see her, and she took one look at it, and I completely forgot to do my part. I was so consumed by victim mentality that I completely forgot to do my part in it. And she just turned me around, sent me home, and said, "Do it, or I'm just not going to talk to you." And
that's a good mentor, a good good friend.
She was very good. Yeah, and so then I started looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, when somebody can have that tough love and not just listen, because there's in today's day and age, and maybe always, maybe this is just kind of human nature. There are so many people willing to complain and blame, and then so many people willing to listen so that they can then dump on them. So it's just a big dumping party, but it never has that second part, which is actually the helpful part, because it is helpful to express what you truly feel. It's not about repressing those emotions, right? Like expressing that the anger and the hatred, whatever it is, expressing that, getting that out of you. But then, like you said, getting to that point and asking, what did I do? Looking for the responsibility, looking for the power that you have over that situation. It's like, that's the next element, right? So it's like, it's okay to go through that and to express that. And it's actually healthy and it's actually good. And that's why I tell a lot of people too, when they say, what do I do with this anger? I'm like, well, first, you need to express it in a healthy way, right? It doesn't mean yelling at your children or your family or your spouse or anything. Sometimes it's just writing it out, purely writing out the anger, right? But then getting to that point where it's like, what can I do about this? What's the problem? How can I solve this? What's my part in this, right?
Yep. Like some of the tools I love so much in the program are, like when I was going back over that interview, I remembered it as the box journal where you get to just like explode and just like unload everything on the page. And I love emojis, phone emojis, emoji. Just go about your day,
Yeah.
But it's just like, because you got to the emotion. The emotion has to come out. The emotion's valid. You went through something horrible. You got to express that. But do you want to sit in it the rest of your life and get worse? For me, like what happened, like I came into Broken Unbreakable in 2020, and I hung around for about 2 years before I really started to dig in. And what happened was I got along in the program. I started to achieve some wins. And then I fell back. At one point I had a bunch of concussions and I couldn't do the work. But what really got to me, I'm married, and my husband of then 18 years said to me, Dana, I'm not going to leave you, but this is getting really hard. And I love him so much. And the thought of losing him, and the state I was in the physical condition I was in, I knew I was going to wind up in a group home if things kept going down that path. It was that bad. And so I dug in, and I just went all in and did the work in the program, and took responsibility for myself. And like some of the stuff, like the deep beliefs that I had about not being able to take care of myself, boy, I worked the heck out of that, Brad. I really did, with all the tools of the program. I used like the bilateral processing for what other people would be familiar with as EMDR, to work through the actual memories that I had associated with those things. I use the introspective healing, being the reporter, asking the who, what, when, where, why questions, on situations. I use the protectors, the IFS stuff with my emotions, and the beliefs. I rock beliefs. I still saved. I have them here. I saved like all these affirmations that I came up with, that I had to come up with, and just chipped away at it. And then I got to a point of just very practical stuff, because I had, like I'm still feeling it. I can't take care of myself. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a self-defense class. Why am I feeling I can't take care of myself? Okay, my computer skills aren't up to par. I need to bring my computer skills up to par. So I got online, and I got in with a service, and I started regularly taking classes. This is all while I'm doing the Overcoming PTSD program. And so it's real practical stuff too that you've got to do. How much do you want to get well? Do you really want to get well? You have to ask yourself that question. And what are you getting out of being ill? What are you getting out of being disabled? There are perks to it. You don't have to do anything. You can blame everybody. You can have outbursts. Nobody calls you on it. I could go on.
Yeah.
There are perks to it. So what do you want? Do you want that, or do you want a full life? What do you want? And you really have to ask yourself the question, and then follow through on the action. It isn't enough just to go in and talk to somebody about it. You have to do the work.
Man, so much wisdom right there. And I think a lot of people get stuck. I think you pointing out there are benefits to being hurt, right? There are things that are keeping you there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of fear that's preventing you from actually going through it to get to the other side of the pain. But there's also things that keep you there, and to be honest about yourself with that too, and take responsibility. And that's one of the part of a huge part of responsibility is being able to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Right? There is, and being able to say to yourself, there is something, I am getting something out of this, right? And being able to acknowledge that. And then saying like, I'm not taking responsibility for this piece that I had in it. And I don't want to admit that.
Yeah, and the other part of it was when you talk in the program about, or maybe I'm using my own terms, I can't remember, but I call them like second, third, and fourth order consequences to actions. Like I love the mindfulness aspect of the program, and I love to teach people to meditate, but being present. And in the moment, you have God wants us to be in the moment and to make choices. And it's only in the moment that you're going to be able to affect your life. And the second and third order consequences, if I, like the example you use in the program, if I come home and I binge watch Netflix and eat a tub of ice cream, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And when you play that out, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. And I've lived most of it. And so it's always like, it's definitely like everything I've learned in overcoming PTSD, I've incorporated into my life in one way or another. And so I have a healthy lifestyle today. I still do a lot of the stuff that I learned in the program. The planner, I'd love for you to talk about the planner. That's like an anchor for me. And I do gratitudes. The science behind it, I think you say in the program, is 5, and I do 11 a day. Because, and I told the co-founder that I do 11 because my attitude was so crappy. I decided I would double it up and then throw one more in for good measure.
I love it.
And I still do them. And it's like I'm very passionate about recovery and getting well from PTSD. But I have so much joy in my life today, Brad. And I love it. I have, I wanted to read just real quickly. Like, I was sick for 3 days. I was out of work for 3 days because of a virus that was going around. I was negative for COVID, but there was a virus. And I came back and there were 7 cards in my box with multiple signatures. I work with 25 men, approximately 25 men. I had all these cards, and then one of them wrote this, and he said that God showed me his light through one of his miracles in the work of you. I felt the energy that came from you that gave me strength to push through. God spoke to me through you. It was a light of his glorious righteousness and grace. God showed me and put me into myself well. It felt like an epiphany, a state of mind, body, and soul. So thank you for the miracle you are, and thank you, Father God, for allowing your presence to be acknowledged by me through his grace, seeing a miracle of his word. You're a strong-willed woman. May you continue to shine in God's light. It's just like, I wasn't that person.
That's amazing.
For years. And it's just through the program and all the prayer and the miracle of God's work in my life that I'm a different person today. And then, like, I think you've got to talk about also, maybe not professionals even, but family members or people in your life who really don't want you to get well.
Yeah,
you have the people who tell you they want you to get well until you get well. So it's quite a shift. There's some people who are very invested in people being sick.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge topic right there. But let me ask you this: how does it feel to now be able to actually? Because the word you said was, I feel so much joy. How does it feel to experience that joy and also get to a point where you're able to impact other people's lives in this positive way? Like, how does that feel? Is that something that you always wanted to do? Because it's amazing the people that you can help. Even to me, hearing that, it just like makes me a little emotional, because I'm like I know, like, I had some part in helping you, and now you're helping more people, and then now they're going to get better with the help from you, and they're going to help more people. And that's on you and the work that you did. So, like, the people that you impact from helping yourself is just fantastic. And then all the people that you are helping right now, who are listening right now, who are feeling inspired, who have gone through the same thing as you, is incredible. How does that feel to be able to look back over your entire journey, over your entire life since you were, a child to now, to be able to experience that joy and help other people?
Wow. There's so much involved with that, Brad. I think, like, I did early on in sobriety, I did something called a spiritual gifts assessment. And there's certain gifts that we believe God has endowed us with, that we're all created uniquely. I believe everybody's created uniquely. And we all work together, so we're in community, and no gift is better than another gift. And I happen to be gifted in servanthood and helping. And that kind of put me on a pathway of out of like little chaos. Okay, well, what can I do? I'll be helpful. Do something helpful. And it led me into human services. I was working with people who were intellectually disabled, people with mental illness, in a sheltered workshop environment. I was a supervisor. And at that point, I was like, I think I really am feeling called to work with people with mental illness. And so then I kept pursuing that. So that was always the path that I felt like I was being called on. So it's just something that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, and because I'm stepping into my gift, I get so much purpose out of my work. I feel so blessed that I love the work I do, and I tell the beneficiaries there. I say, you see what you see is what you get. This is Dana from the time I get up in the morning to the time I go to bed at night. This is just me, and the joy I have is just phenomenal. I don't take anything for granted at all. I lost so much because of mental illness. I lost so much because of physical disability. I get such a kick out of just small things. And when somebody does something like in the rehabilitation center where I work, it's a residential facility. I do counseling. I also mete out consequences when there's been poor behavior or a rule's been violated. And so I have that role too. But it's always like when I see growth, I get so excited, Brad. It's just mind blowing, and there's a song out now in worship music, 1, 2, 3 up to infinity. I can't count all my blessings. It's just and like the thing that probably be totally mind blowing for a lot of people who are listening now. And this is no joke. I am grateful at this point in my life, after all the work I've done, and I've done a lot of work. Like I tried to figure it out. I think it was somewhere between 200 and 300 hours of processing to get through everything. But after all that work that I've done, I am grateful. I am grateful for all my experiences because I love my life. I love the person I am today. I'm so happy. I have this amazing life, and I wouldn't, and none of it would be possible. When you play out consequences and chains of events and things like that and all this stuff, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't gone through all those things. And like at the deepest bottom I had, where I was having the greatest existential crisis and having to ask myself, why in the world will God allow all of this stuff to happen to one person? And my psychologist was enormously helpful to me. He's a Christian, and we were able to have those deep conversations. And out of it, for me, like it's in scripture for me, he knew every hair on my head. He knows every hair on my head. He knew me in my mother's womb. He knew everything. He knew that I would be equipped, that I had choice in all these situations. I'm responsible for poor decisions I made and consequences that happened. But I'm equipped to handle all that. And he put things in my life and my path. And he put Broken to Unbreakable and Overcoming PTSD in my path. I latched onto it. I did the work, but it was there. And it blows my mind that I have the life I have today because it gives me so much joy. I don't know if that answers your question. I just love my life.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, there are so many blessings in life and so many opportunities in life. And the way you said it is like, I grabbed onto that. It's like you still play that part because you can choose.
Oh yeah.
You have free will. You get to choose whether you hold on to this opportunity or you seize this opportunity or this chance to get better, or you allow this, like the people who are listening, you allow what Dana's saying to actually wake you up, to ask yourself, what part did I have in my past? What responsibility do I have? And it is a choice at the end of the day to wake up, to seize those opportunities or not. But I was going to ask you, so it's interesting you said between 200 and 300 hours of processing, which is just really interesting. And that's to like full recovery, right? Where you are right now, where you're experiencing true joy and you're giving back and you're helping other people. 200, 300 hours is not a lot of time. Like if you do an hour a day, that's less than a year. Because on the last podcast, when I was talking,
it was my commitment contract in the program, when we do the commitment contract to ourselves and that we're all in. My commitment contract was January 26, 2023. My last one. Yeah.
I love that. But it's not a lot of time.
Something else I have to tell you about being all in and taking responsibility. Like when I decided that I was all in with overcoming PTSD and getting on top of the PTSD, I was 58. I'm 59 now. I have arthritis. I have chronic pain issues. I have these things that come along with my circumstances, but it's not slowing me down. I take steps
Yeah.
to address it because I want it. I want it. I had so much chaos and so much destruction and so much ill health in my life that once you get a piece of it, once I just encourage people, just do the work, just latch onto it and don't let go. Because when you get a taste of it, you just want more. And it's just the like knowing, like I have this great ticket to work coach right now in Social Security, and she just is in my corner, and I'm just rocking it.
That's awesome. So you say just do the work, latch onto it, just go. What advice would you give people who don't know what direction to go in? So, because that's where I found myself. It's like, okay, I want to do these things, but what do I actually do? And that's always the question for people. It's like, even if I'm inspired, even if I want to face my past, where do I even start? So like, what suggestions would you have for people in that case? Because you have a wide experience with a lot of different things. What would you say to somebody who's confused and not sure like what direction to go in?
Pray for help. Pray for help. God loves that prayer. Help me. And that prayer is answered. And trust to move forward. And I'm just like a megaphone for your program, God. I just love what overcoming PTSD has done in my life, and I would just encourage people to make the investment in the program. I'm not here to do a commercial for you. I just love my life. Talk about it, but it's like that was my pathway out. And I have to tell people, if you make the investment in yourself and in the program, get involved in the community, because I was suspicious of the community. I had so much suspicion, so much paranoia.
For good reason.
And it prevented me from participating in the community. I just stayed on the edges of the platform. It's kind of like a social media platform, and I stayed on the edges. But then when I went all in, I just started participating in the community. And so these are my good inputs. The positive inputs that I have in my life are people from the community. I'm still going to some domino calls. I'll go to domino calls in the morning when I'm able to. Those are just check-in calls with the people in the community. And I have my goals for the day. I have an accountability partner. And I visit with her once a week, and we stay on track for recovery and for personal, and and do all that. And I hope someday I have a friend from the community who lives in Australia, and we Zoomed and and messaged on Facebook and stuff. And it's just been a joy. And these are the cheerleaders that you need in your life, because there's people telling you you're not going to get well, especially if you're somebody my age who's been through a lot of trauma. You're not having a lot of people in your corner telling you that you're going to get well. And just like latch into the community, just plug in.
Yeah. Finding people who will support you. In my experience too, is finding people like either people who have already done it, right? Or who are actively working on getting better. Because like, that's not like, it's hard to find. I found it was challenging to find somebody who was supportive in that way. Even if you go to quote unquote, support groups, a lot of them are people who are, it's just trauma dumping on trauma dumping. Oh, you dump your trauma. Now you dump your trauma. And at the end of it, you just feel worse because you never address your problems. And then you just hear even more problems, and they're all just left there on the surface and never really dealt with. Yeah. So I found it very challenging, but the people that you surround yourself with is really powerful. And that again is something that you did, right? Because those are still choices that you made to go out there and find those people and to connect with those people. And like relationships take work, right? Especially if they're like across the country. It's like you need to nourish those and look for those. And accountability partners, not everybody has those. And that can be in the program or not. Like for anybody who's listening, like you can find somebody who's on the same journey, who's in your corner, who's has that goal, who's looking to get better. It could be a partner, it could be a local friend or somebody that you meet online. But having that support is very helpful.
Like the other thing is like the like it doesn't even have to be a person that, I mean, like yes, definitely make that personal contact, but when you're starting out, look for literature that's supportive. Look for inspirational stories. I did a lot of stuff with like Viktor Frankl was mentioned in the program, and I'm just like, I'm having a blank spot on the one guy. I have the biography on my phone and I've been reading it. But people who've been through really extreme circumstances and overcame that with good attitude and grace, and surround yourself with that. Just like pump that into your life. You just got to have a lot of good, healthy stuff. I stopped watching a lot of television. I stopped a lot of that stuff. It was encouraged in the program, and then I kept it as a habit. And it makes a difference what you put in, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. That's a really good tip right there, and that's something that helped me and Kayleen as well in the beginning. Was like, you don't have references for success for people who have gone through tremendous hardship and come out the other side successful, which is why I want to do interviews like this. Because most interviews out there, even a lot of therapists, like sometimes I watch interviews with therapists or whatever, like a podcast, or I listen to a podcast, and the therapist itself talk about their problems that they still have. And like, if I was there, I'd just be like, why, like, what are you doing about it to actually solve that problem? Like, why is that problem still there? Because they just accept that problem to be there. And so there are very few, I mean, there are a lot of success stories out there, but you have to find them. Right. But I think there's few success stories with PTSD that are being told, which is why I want to do these podcasts. Because you're somebody who has completed their full story arc, right? A lot of people, it's just halfway, or maybe their full story arc is, get hurt, get broken, stay broken for the rest of my life, and maybe that's their arc, But for you, it's like you go through the full transformation, and that's what people need to see and look for. But Viktor Frankl is a great one. He was a huge one for me. Louis Zamperini was one. There's a bunch of great ones.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. I'm reading his biography.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, his biography is great too. I mean, you think about that. Somebody who was a prisoner of war, who got like prisoner of war and really crazy, like his story is wild. He was in the movie Unbroken. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I haven't seen that.
It was a good movie. And then Viktor Frankl, Holocaust. Lost his wife and his children, came out the other side, inspired, found meaning in the camp itself, and was able to help people in the camp itself, and then go out. In the same year that he got out, he was doing talks on the meaning of the Holocaust and helping people through that. Is like just an incredible, incredible guy. Another great book that you might actually like, I finished it this year, was Eddie Jaku. It's another story of a man who was in the Holocaust, but crazy story. The book is called, I believe it's like the Happiest Man Alive or something. I'm going to look it up right now. It's really good. I would recommend that. Where is it? But super, super good. It's not coming up, but it's like The Happiest Man Alive, Eddie Jaku or something, but super good. Again, like somebody who can go through the Holocaust, lose family members, and then come out and be like, yeah, I'm the happiest man alive.
Yeah.
Like what kind of reference is that? You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And those are like the inputs that people need to be feeding themselves. Get out of those support groups that are, trauma dumping. Get out of the, stop, reading and rehashing your own trauma, and start inputting these positive stories of success into your mind. Cause that's what you need to heal, or that's what you need to hear to heal if you want to heal. Right? If you want to even challenge those beliefs, because in the first place, you need to be willing to put yourself in front of those inputs that are going to challenge the current beliefs that you have, that are going to challenge that current victim mentality, that are going to challenge you to actually take responsibility for your life, because that is a core thread to anybody who heals. But man, yeah, that's incredible. But yeah, putting in that time for you, the 200, 300 hours, you said the program was very helpful for you. That was a turning point for you.
Very,
What specifically about the program itself? Like what work? Like, I know you said you did a lot of different processing tools too, and you challenged a lot of beliefs. Could you go into the process for you that helped you the most? It seems like when you were talking earlier, the process that helped you the most was identifying and challenging and changing those beliefs. Right.
mm,
So could you go into what worked best for you in that regard? To how did you identify the beliefs that you held? Right. Because that really
sure.
is the programming that dictates everything. And then how did you kind of work through that?
Sure. I had this one therapist, and she helped me. So this is what I meant about like you just get like, oh, what are these people doing in my head? But like I got as far with cognitive behavioral therapy. You go through the different types of dysfunctional thinking, your patterns, you do logs, you do all this stuff, and you come up with your core dysfunctional beliefs. She left me with my core dysfunctional beliefs, and then I couldn't find anybody to help me figure out how to get out of my core dysfunctional beliefs. And so I sat with like this heavy weight of feeling like I was a horrible person. I can't take care of myself. Everything's out of my control.
How did you identify those?
It was going through like all my thinking patterns, catastrophic thinking, fortune telling, just all the classic stuff that you do.
Okay.
And then like when I was doing it, like I was keeping really detailed logs of like when I was thinking things and what I was thinking and logging that and then trying to challenge it. But in the process, recognizing patterns. And so like those were the three that came out, those three.
Okay.
That I was a person, everything's out of my control and I can't take care of myself. So anyway, so then I'm left sitting with that for a few years. And then along comes Broken to Unbreakable. And so what I learned in the program was I'm a very visual person, and I love the beliefs table that you and Kayleen, the process that you share with that. And what it is just like the tabletop is the belief, and the legs are the reference points. And so I have journals full of these diagrams where I would have the belief, I can't take care of myself, and what was supporting that belief, that negative belief. What were the supports, and then challenging those beliefs with situations where I had taken care of myself, because like ultimately, like I was reading through some of this stuff before the interview and this interview, and I had one where my last drink was a suicide attempt. And I prayed going under. I prayed. I was going through a lot of stuff at the time. I was looking into Buddhism, and so I was going through all this stuff with past lives and all this stuff. And I was going under, and I got this thought. I'm like, oh my God, I have to come back and live through this all over again. And I just said, God help me. And I came to like really late the next day. And I knew it was a miracle. And I got up and I got to a meeting, found the old sponsor, said I'm willing to do the work, and then just kept going. But I my belief was that even at my worst, I make good decisions because I called on God for help. And that was like the ultimate best decision I ever made in my life. And then I think of little situations beyond that. When I've taken care of myself, I do self-care, I shower, I do these things, I do this, I do that. But finding the one reference point that was the strongest and then making a statement out of that, I take care of myself because, and fill in the blank. And then what you do is then you say, this makes me feel, and you choose 3 emotions. And they have to be, you can't just do them broad. They have to be genuine, and each day they're different. And then you really feel the feeling when you're going through it. This makes me feel genuine, joyous, alive. What does that feel like? And then I write those words out, and I just sit in them for a minute. I just saturate How does that make me feel? It's changed me as a person. It just totally changed me as a person. But I challenged all those things, all the things about feeling like I was a horrible person. All the stuff that I did was when I was acutely ill with PTSD and or using and drinking, and just making very poor choices and very poor decisions. And some of the stuff I did was very destructive, so yeah, I did horrible things, but I was sick. And now I make fantastic decisions. So, I did that. Everything's out of my control. No, what's in my control, and start challenging that belief. And so I kept working at that. And like the biggest one for me was that I couldn't take care of myself. And like I said, I was throwing the kitchen sink at it. I was doing everything. Because I can tell you, I had the progress. Like at one point, before starting this process, the thought of taking a self-defense course was so triggering that I was carrying pepper spray in the house. I was locking myself in rooms, carrying pepper spray in the house. And when I got to this point in the program and I was challenging my beliefs, and I'm like, I gotta take it up to the next level. I gotta kick it up to the next level. I pulled a self-defense class into my church and did a self-defense course there. And so I learned some basic moves and what I can do. And that made me feel better. You've got to take action. You've got to do the work, and like I said, doing the Microsoft Office classes, but yeah, that was my process with the beliefs.
That's awesome. So analyzing your thinking patterns, right? And then, just walking through what your process was. It's like you walk through your habitual thinking patterns, identified the patterns within those because the patterns were the beliefs, right? And then you took those and you made the table diagram, tabletop being the belief, the legs being the reasons or the references for why you believe that belief to be true. And then you challenged those, each one of the reasons, right?
Right.
Created the new belief and then just layered on as many references as you can. And like you said, you threw the kitchen sink at it, right?
Yeah.
And this was just stuff that you wrote down on a piece of paper, right? You actually wrote down these diagrams and journals. Yeah. And that's the work, right?
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And that's something that you did.
Yeah.
Right?
There's science behind it that when you're writing, it connects with your brain. And so it's so important. I mean, people can do it on the computer. You got to write it out longhand. There's science behind it. And that makes it really stick.
I love that. So what would you say your biggest piece of advice is for somebody who's listening, who might feel stuck or where you used to be? What would you say to them? Or if you could speak to a younger version of yourself.
Don't believe the lie. Don't believe the lie. We do recover. Do not believe the lie.
Yeah. And that's huge. It's crazy how the things that we believe and the thoughts that we have really do.
What you believe, you
dictate.
become. What you believe, you become. I have one of my I have like all these statements on my work stand. I had it all covered up because I had a lot of work on it. But it's like the one that I like the most was from I think his name is Richard Bach. He wrote Illusions, and argue for your limitations and they're yours. If you argue hard enough that you have problems, that you're broken, that you're never going to get well, that you're a victim, you'll believe that and you'll become that. It's a nightmare. You create your own nightmare. And you have to make the changes in your own brain to work your way out of that. And it isn't just like an exercise on paper and just these words, because there are actions that go along with it. You start walking those things out. You start taking better care of yourself. You start treating people better. You start taking responsibility. And there's so many tools that you give us in the program, coping skills in the meantime, and you're very clear that coping isn't going to be the end of your story. Like I got so much from people, oh, you're just going to be coping the rest of your life. Yeah, right. Great, thanks. But it helps in the short run. But it's just like you just come through it. I still like I'll come home from work and I do, just because I'm very empathetic and I take in a lot. I'll still do like bilateral tapping on the outside of my legs, and I get some somatic release from that. Just by that's just the energy that your body's storing, and just release some of that. And I do my meditation in the morning. I do my mind palace, where I have the seasons. Visualization's huge for me. Visualizing your hand helps too. But I have photographs on my phone for different seasons, and I spend 5 minutes in my mind palace, which is just like the happy space, and then I meditate for 10 minutes. I do my scripture and reflection. I do my stretching, and then the day's on. And then who knows what's going to happen. One of my other affirmations: I'm comfortable in chaos. Perfectionism almost killed me, and I have the pace at work is frenetic. It's frenetic, and there's always something going on. I'm putting out fires. I'm counseling. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But I'm comfortable in chaos, and I am today.
That's beautiful. Was it all worth it? The work?
The work, definitely. The pain,
definitely. Right? Was it painful to put in the work?
It was hard. I was looking over. Some of it was hard. It was like I was looking over my notes, and I'm glad I kept everything, because it's like I made notes when I would do the EMDR, when I do the bilateral processing with for me, I used audio. I used the eye movement was too distracting, so I used the bilateral audio and did the reps and stuff. But like on a couple of them, I was like, I just totally broke down and cried. I lost it. But what I would do, I dedicated just a couple hours a day to doing that processing. I'm just going to do the processing, and then on top of that, doing the beliefs work and the affirmations and like all the other stuff that I was doing. But the processing, the bilateral processing, and working through those memories, and your head just jumps around to different places. And but I was equipped for it. That's the thing. Because like you asked me, was it hard? And yes, it was hard. But I was equipped. By the time I got to the processing, I had the relief tools. I knew what I was doing. I had the new beliefs that I installed. Like I would process to the point where the new belief would just pop up, and I had a huge smile on my face. And I'm like, yep, I'm done. And so like check that box off. I don't know, I think it was like 7 pages of things I needed to process, of like college ruled lines, this event, this event, this event, this event, this event, and just kept chipping away at it.
That's interesting. So it wasn't as scary or painful as hard as you thought it would be, because you had the foundations in place.
Yeah.
Because you had you felt confident because you had the coping tools. You challenged some core beliefs around processing in your past, right? Which gave you confidence. You knew why you wanted to do it, right? And your reasonings for, like, you did the commitment contract. You found your reasons why it was important to actually face these things and push through it.
Yeah.
And you had control over your mind. You're aware of, how your mind worked, and you're able to influence control over it. So with the foundations, it wasn't that scary, that's an interesting observation for me, which is cool. So it wasn't that hard. Once you had that in place, you put in 200 to 300 hours total. It was 100% worth it. You're now feeling joy. When you think about 2 to 300 hours of processing, even just 1 hour a day, that's less than a year. If you're going to do traditional therapy, that would probably take you 6, 7, maybe 8 years, right? If that. If
you can find it, because then they're always taking a break to get another degree.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
And assuming you're actually doing productive work and you have a good therapist who actually believes in full recovery.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the other thing too with therapy is like they do kind of, maybe not all therapists, but a lot of them kind of pigeonhole you into one modality, right? So you have this one pathway to process your trauma. And what I found is that it takes multiple ways to attack it from different angles, because different problems require different tools. But that's cool. And your piece of advice is don't believe the lie, which is huge. Yeah. And that's just like the belief. And that's where most people start, is they believe this lie, whether it's told to them by somebody else or told to them by themselves, that you're always going to be like this. And you're 100% right. If somebody believes that, they will be that forever. Your beliefs become your reality. You become what you believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So challenging that would be the most important thing that anybody does to get started. And that's really where hope begins, and hope begins, or recovery begins where hope begins as well. So,
hope is huge.
Yeah.
Always have hope. Mm-hmm. I never give up on people, ever. I never gave up on myself. It's funny. I'm highly competitive, and I didn't want them to win. I didn't want them to win. Those people that were telling me that I wasn't going to get well, I didn't want them to win. And so I'm highly competitive. Yes.
Hell yeah. I love that. And on a different note, heard you're writing a book. Are you writing that now?
Yes.
Are you actively working on it, or?
I'm like working on it now. I'm kicking around ideas for it. I feel called to write a novel. And I'm working on stuff biblically with the counseling and my feelings about traditional therapy versus biblical counseling. I had people for a long time telling me that I should write an autobiography. So I have like a lot of books in me. It's sitting down and finding the time to do it. Yeah,
that's cool. Do you know which one you'd write first, or is it still all in the beginning phases for you? It's
still in the beginning phases. I'm really tempted to write something on some of the therapies that are out there, and because like I'm all about biblical counseling and the hope that's there, and the responsibility that we take instead of putting our spirit out there, our negative thoughts and our negative actions out there, taking responsibility for ourselves and asking for grace and forgiving people and forgiving ourselves for our past, is huge. So I'd really like to see. I'm like, what I'm trying to decide right now is if I want to go on and get a degree and get certified as a biblical counselor, or if I want to do some writing. So I'm just kind of at a pause right now.
Cool. Well, that's an exciting future. A lot of different directions, a lot of exciting directions for you to go in. Well, whenever that book comes out, would love to interview you again to go over that. Any last words?
Any last words? Yeah, I'm looking at something. Okay, on my workstand. This is from the program, and you might have to explain it. It's just data. Mm-hmm. It's just data. We get told that in the program for all the emotions and all the memories and all the things we've been through. It's just data. I think of my brain as this massive computer processor. I've been gifted by God with this remarkable, imaginative, creative force in my brain, and it's just data. Don't get invested in it. Don't let it change your life. You have control over it. It doesn't have control over you. It's just data, is what I'd say.
Cool. Yeah. And that's like, I remember that was something that I said, just like kind of like off the cuff. Yeah. And then it like people like caught on to it.
And we picked it up. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But basically it's like looking at things objectively, like the inputs, like if you think of it, like we have 5 senses, that's how we, interact and interpret the world. So all the information that's being inputted into our brain is from those senses. So those sensory organs, right? And there's no interpretation. It's literally just information. It's literally just data coming into you. which then is
Right.
processed and interpreted in your brain, right?
Right.
So the raw information coming in is completely objective. There's, whatever, no meaning to it, no inherent meaning to it, right? I mean, maybe like that's like a higher level conversation, but
Yeah.
just in general terms, no meaning, it's just objective. And then it's how we interpret it. And it's our interpretation that then creates our beliefs, and then our beliefs that then create our reality, right?
Exactly.
So by just viewing everything, your past, as though it was data, or everything that you're experiencing now just as data, allows you to take that step back and actually view it more objectively and to reinterpret it, because such a large part of recovery is reinterpretation, going into your past and reinterpreting it, reinterpreting the events, reinterpreting the emotions, reinterpreting the memories, reinterpreting other people, right? It's all challenging the current beliefs and interpretations that we have, even forgiveness. It's like I have to reinterpret the way that I'm perceiving what this person did to me or what I did to myself, right? So I love that. It's just data. It's something for us to view and look at objectively, and we choose how we interpret it, or we don't choose. And maybe we just allow life to affect us, and maybe we are just victims for the rest of our life. Or maybe that's just how we interpret it. So that's cool. I love that. Awesome. Well, I had a great time. This was an awesome conversation. I would love to do it again too. Either on the book or get an update with how things are going with the men in the Salvation Army.
There's just,
I know. We could also do like a deep dive into like addiction or something specifically, because I know this one was kind of broad. So it would be kind of cool to, maybe pick one topic and go deeper into something like that. Because you're a wealth of knowledge, and your story is amazing. What you went through and how you went through it with so much grace, and now you're going on to help even more people. It's amazing. It's inspiring. You're a beautiful person. You deserve all the joy that,
thank you.
That all the joy that you're experiencing right now, you deserve it. And
thank you very much, Brad. Thank you.
Those are some lucky guys that you're helping out too, because your stuff, and their lives are going to get so much better, and you're such a blessing on this earth. So thank you, Dana.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. It's been a joy talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. And Dana is 100% right. Do not believe the lie that you cannot recover from PTSD. It doesn't matter how long you've struggled. And Dana proves that no matter what you've been through, how long you've been struggling, you can fully heal, and never forget that. Now, if you want to learn more about how we can help you fully heal, check out some of the links in the show notes. But keep believing in yourself, keep moving forward, never give up, and know that recovery is there for you and possible for you. I'll see you in the next one.